Oh, hey guys. Well, I guess I was supposed to have a countdown going live, but I guess the countdown didn't want to start today for whatever reason. So, surprise, we're live without a countdown. But guys, I promise you, today's stream is going to be worth it. We got a great guest coming up today. I'm fingers crossed. Everyone needs to pray for my internet because, as you guys know, we had a giant nor'easter snowstorm this week in New Hampshire, and it's knocked out power in a lot of places, and our internet flickered about an hour ago, and I think it's still kind of coming back up and online. So everyone send positive vibes for my internet in New Hampshire. That'll be really great. I am so excited about the guest we have today. She is an activist. She is a mom out in Colorado. You actually are all familiar with some of her work because I'm going to show you. Hang on. Hang on one second. Let me get it up. If you saw this story on my Substack, oh, good. Everything is slow today. If you saw this story on my Substack a couple weeks ago, Colorado elementary school assistant principal lies to parents to secretly transition their child. This is the lady that broke this information on the internet. She's the one that did the FOIA request, that found the emails. She's the one that spread it all over the internet. She has been doing amazing work out in the Pooter, I'm told it's pronounced, school district in Colorado. And she's got a whole backstory of how she got into this space. I'm always, no one that is doing work in the unwoke space in terms of indoctrination in schools, pushing back on this sort of behavior. This is not part of anyone's life plan, right? You don't grow up and say, I want to be an activist fighting back against the school districts. That's how I want to spend my day. People just get kind of thrown into this space. And so I'm really interested to hear her story about how she got involved in this, what she's been finding, what recommendations she has for parents and families, things like that. It's going to be a great chat. And I definitely recommend, if you haven't read this article already on my Substack, make sure you give it a read because it is some scary stuff. And we'll talk about what's in it when we get to that. But before I bring on my amazing guest, I just want to do a couple quick promos. Number one, guys, if you are not subscribed to my Substack yet, why not? It's free. Substack is the home of my content. It is my content hub, the place where I'm trying to centralize everything. Of course, I'm still doing YouTube stuff and I'm still doing Twitter because I can't escape it. But Substack is the place where you are going to get the absolute best content. Now, of course, this week, sadly, I've been focused on drama around Gays Against Groomers, where I interviewed 7 whistleblowers from the organization talking about what's really going on behind the scenes and the leadership that the founder of Gays Against Groomer has been showing. And, she's responded with her typical appropriate amount of professionalism, and she has gone on a 3-day Twitter bender, basically trying to smear me for exposing what's going on with Gays Against Groomers. Now, I do want to say a great big thank you. First of all, I was not expecting to cover this topic for 3 days in a row. I do actually have another article that's going to be coming out because I have more whistleblower information, but I wasn't expecting this. Usually when you do whistleblower stuff inside an organization, the founder of the organization doesn't then go on a 3-day Twitter bender, smearing you to high heaven, calling you a pedophile when there's no proof of that, and all sorts of other chicanery. But since that was how she elected to respond, I elected to document it for posterity just in case I need to hire a lawyer at some point. And you can find that all on the Substack. But I do really hope to get away from this topic now. I have one more piece to write about it, but there's so many other things that we need to focus on. And I do also want to let people know that Substack has just launched a live chat feature, which is actually pretty great. And we're having some great live chats on my Substack. We're talking about alternative words that you can use for groomer, because I think that groomer, quite frankly, is being very overused to the point that it is kind of meaningless at this point. So we're having a discussion right now in my Substack about alternative words we can use for groomers. We've talked about different, just like ask me anythings, what questions people want answered, stuff like that. There's a lot of good stuff going on. So please make sure you're subscribed to it. You'll get an email every time I start a live chat. You can come in and participate on it. It's a really cool feature. It's like the adult version of Twitter. Okay, maybe it's way better than what the adult version of Twitter would be. And so check it out. Make sure you're subscribed. Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. I also have a couple articles coming up that I'm working on right now. I'm working on an article for my Woke Mind series about what the cancel mob wants when they come for you. And this might piss some people off, but it's just the way it goes. I'm working on an article about why I refuse to hate Dylan Mulvaney. That's going to be a controversial one, but I feel strongly that I need to write it. And so I'm going to put it out there, and people are going to have whatever feelings they have. I also want to let people know that tonight, and you can find this if you go to the Unwoke Your Work series. I am doing the third in my Unwoke Your Work workshops. This is a monthly workshop series that I'm doing. It is a live training, and I'm trying to get my organizational psychology stuff online and on demand. It is completely politics free. This is all just about the psychology of how humans show up in the workplace, how they show up in the world generally. You don't even need to use this information in the workplace. It's available, it's applicable rather, to all sorts of different circumstances. And I'm doing the third workshop in my series tonight, and you still have time to register for it. So our first workshop was a confidence building workshop. Last time we talked about interpersonal politics. Tonight, we are going to be talking about advanced psychology, mastering why people do what they do. We're going to get into the weeds about how to predict human behavior and how to respond when people are giving you certain things, whether they're positive reactions or negative reactions. I'm going to teach you how to identify these things without even needing someone to take a psychological test or anything like that. This is incredibly useful information. It is useful in terms of activism. It is useful in terms of the workplace. It is useful in terms of getting your friends to do what you want them to do. It is useful in terms of predicting the outcomes of elections. The techniques I'm going to teach you in workshops, I have literally used these to predict the results of last year's midterms 6 months before the midterms even happened. So this is your key to the kingdom for almost everything. It's really great. You still have plenty of time to sign up for it. If you can't make the live workshop tonight, it will be recorded and it will be sent to your inbox bright and early in the morning. And included with this too is another follow-up workshop for next week. You can find out more information on the website or by going to activelyunwoke.com/work. And you can see all of my workshops coming up. I've got a whole bunch of them. They're all scheduled out for the year, and we're having a great time with it. It is a nice little breather, guys. The world is so crazy right now. And moving forward with my content, of course, I'm going to keep covering the unwoke stuff. That's what we're all here to do. But I also am going to be creating content around mindfulness, around sanity, around human relations, around different life perspectives, because I really think that a lot of us right now need a little breather of sanity in the world. And so that's what I'm trying to do as well. And in addition to giving you the dystopian stuff, I'm also giving you the counter to it. All right, guys, that is all the announcements I have, but I do want to bring on my amazing guest. Her handle on Twitter is Erin, Erin. She spells it the correct way, not the incorrect way, like so many Erins are prone to do. And she goes by Erin for Parents on Twitter. Erin Lee is the mother of 3 children in northern Colorado, including one in a charter school and one in private. She is a full-time HR manager, so Erin understands the unwoke your work stuff, and a writer. She has become a vocal advocate for parental rights and transparency in education after being personally affected by extreme agendas in government schools. She's been on Glenn Beck, NewsMax, Fox News, Daily Wire, Epoch Times, and the Daily Mail in the UK. And now I'm really happy to have her on my channel. And Erin, welcome to the stream.
Thanks so much for having me. I've been following you, Karlyn, for months, so it was exciting when I got an email about the story I had exposed. So thank you for sharing our story.
Of course, and I'm so happy you exposed it, but I want to go back. How did you end up in this insane space?
I never in a million years thought, like kind of like you said in the intro, that this would be a platform I would find myself on, that my life's mission would be to expose indoctrination and lack of transparency in government schools. But we had an incident in May of 2021. So my oldest child, my daughter, had just turned 12. We had just moved to a new town, new school. It was the height of COVID protocol. And here in northern Colorado, they had the kids locked down with masking and distancing and social learning. So she hadn't made a single connection with a student her age. And one day, her trusted art and homeroom teacher, art being her favorite subject, asked her to stay after school for art club. She texted us. We gave her permission. Of course, she can go to art club. We want her to make connections. She's longing to connect with kids her age. But when she got there, it was actually Gender and Sexuality Awareness Club.
I remember this story. That was you. I remember this. Oh my God. Okay, keep going.
That was us. And it blew up, but not until about a year after the incident. So she got there, and the teacher had invited in an outside presenter who had never been in that school before, had no qualifications to talk to kids about gender and sex. She runs a nonprofit for kids 5 to 24 to talk about gender and sex. And she started with her number one rule: what you hear in here, keep in here. She used flags to describe different umbrella terms. She told the kids, if you're not fully comfortable in your biological sex, that means you're transgender. She said, she asked them who they're sexually attracted to using the genderbread person activity that explicitly asks these little kids 11 to 13 who they're sexually attracted to. And when my daughter didn't know, because she had genuinely never thought about it, she said, well, that means you're queer, and gave her flags and stickers and bracelets for her new queer and transgender identities. She talked to the kids about polyamory, which I had to Google at that point. I didn't even know what it was. She talked to them extensively about suicide. She told them that their new labels, like my daughter's brand new trans label, makes them more likely to kill themselves, and talked extensively about ways that people their age do it.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. She told the kids families aren't safe, that it's okay to lie to your parents about where you are, not just in that meeting, but she holds meetings throughout the community, in our libraries and our boys and girls clubs, online. Told them that they don't need to tell their parents about these meetings. She invited them to connect on Discord and WhatsApp confidentially. In fact, through FOIA, I read the email with the invite, and it said, make sure that you connect privately with me, friend me, and agree to my rules, and we can connect on Discord.
Oh my
Yep.
God.
And then as my daughter left the room that day, the art teacher pulled her aside and said, remember, you don't have to tell your parents about this. Crazy.
So how did you find out about this? Did your daughter tell you, or did she keep it to herself for a while?
She told us. So thank goodness she came home, and she was honestly kind of excited about it. Like, she had all these toys, all this swag, this colorful, she had been glitter bombed by this adult who she'd never met before. And I had been, vilified by these people who I'd never spoken to. So she came home kind of excited to tell me, because we have a good relationship, Mama. I realize why I'm so uncomfortable in my body. I'm trans. It's like, whoa. You're
Wow.
12. All 12-year-old girls are uncomfortable in their body. And we were just so caught off guard and totally ill-equipped to help her. It was like they intentionally didn't give us a heads up. So our path forward from there was to immediately call the principal, who confirmed that it is a confidential meeting, that all gender and sexuality clubs in the district are confidential, that you cannot opt your children in or out, and they often meet at lunch hour. So you might not even know that they're happening. And in this case, they're telling kids not to tell you. We reached out to the woman who had given her personal information to our child, and she doubled down on all of it. It's like she was proud of what she did. I don't know if she picked up that I was angry about it. Stood before the school board. I cried. I mean, my daughter came home that night and ordered mac and cheese from the kids menu and went to sleep with her teddy bear. And our dad and I cried all night, because that is an innocent little girl whose innocence was just ripped away in a moment, and I can't give it back. And I don't know what to do.
I can't imagine the shock that must be, to like just going along normal one day, and then all of a sudden, like, you get hit in the face with like, my child is being secretly transitioned by the schools and there is nothing that I can do about it. What was that like for you as a parent?
Yeah, horrifying. I mean, we just, and myself, like we talked about this before the program, I consider myself a libertarian. We're pretty open-minded. I considered myself an LGBT ally, and my initial instinct was like, oh no, what if this is real? And I became part of that parent group of people who are bullied into going along with it and affirming it and not raising any kind of skepticism. Which any parent who truly knows their child, it's natural to be skeptical of rapid onset gender dysphoria with zero warning signs prior to that moment. But I initially kind of thought, I don't know what to do. What if I say something I can't take back? What if she is trans and I say something to hurt her and it ruins our relationship forever? So I kind of ignored it and hoped it would go away. And that made it worse. And we actually found out that in the state of Colorado, we took her to a therapist about 6 weeks later, because we saw the decline in her mental health. She was trying to make sense of this label, trying to make it fit. She decided her new name was Toby. She was going to use male name and pronouns. She was trying to live that out. And the school had been doing this with her. They had been calling her they, them pronouns at school. It made it worse. We took her to a therapist, and we learned that in 2019, our governor, who claims to be a libertarian, he's not, passed a bill that outlawed conversion therapy. And in that law, it very clearly says gender confusion. So any licensed therapist cannot question a gender confused child. They are legally obligated to only affirm it. And so that affirmation pushed her further into the rabbit hole, made her even more confused and depressed. We still didn't know what to do to help her. And about 6 months after the incident, she became suicidal. She wrote us a suicide note because she said in the note, it started on that day, and I am so confused and so unable to make sense of my body and my identity that I don't know how to live anymore. So obviously, a 1 hour or a one-time 3 hour meeting with trusted adults can have that big of an impact on a vulnerable little girl.
That is truly terrifying to me. I've never heard something that was just like so quick where they had this one meeting, they love bombed her, they gave her all the swag. I'm sure she got all this positive attention. And then she comes home, talks to you, starts to get really confused. I'm sure she's probably going through puberty anyway, which sucks for everyone ever. And so that's probably not helping things because I'm sure she probably does feel really awkward in her body. And that's just the way it goes. And she doesn't know that because she doesn't have the experience. The school's using different pronouns, so that's going to be reinforcing the confusion all day every day. My God, had you heard of this before it actually happened to you?
Never. I maybe now realize I should have seen it coming, but we were 100% unassuming and trusting. We thought we send our kids to the public school, they're safe. They're with, people who care about our children almost as much as we do. No one could care about a child as much as their parents. I understand that now. But we really had full trust in the system and didn't see this coming at all. It was such a shock. I still am in shock that it happened. Like when I recant the story, it almost doesn't seem real that this happened to us the way it did.
The reason it seems real to me is I've heard this story over and over and over. I work with a woman, I'm sure you've heard of her, name's Gabrielle Clark. The same thing happened to her child. She ended up, pulling her out of school, did a whole 2 year detransitioning, deprogramming parenting workshop where she basically had to reverse engineer everything that the schools did to her daughter to get her daughter back. And it is horrifying when you hear about it because the schools are doing this behind your back. They're not telling you about it. They're telling your kids not to tell you about it. And I think you were very lucky that your daughter came home and told you that day. Because can you imagine? I did a story recently. It's actually the week before I did the story about Colorado, where there was a family in New York in Long Island who was suing a fifth grade teacher and the elementary school because they did exactly the same thing to their child in elementary school, except that the child didn't go home and tell mom and dad. The child just kept, going to school, getting called the different name, getting called the different pronouns, and 4 months later ended up in the school psychologist office drawing pictures about committing suicide. And that was when the school called the parents. And we're starting to see these cases pop up all over the country. Parents Defending Ed just did a study that says there are over 6,000 school districts in the country that actually have policies around not informing the parents of these gender status changes. I mean, I guess, before we get into all this too deeply, how is your daughter doing now?
She's so much better. So we never let her return to school the next day. And because of that, through FOIA emails, which we can get into, I discovered that 2 days after the incident, they colluded with the school board to keep me quiet. They said that parents are barriers that have been removed at other schools. We've dealt with these barriers before. The school board has removed them at other middle schools. They said that anything I say to them should be considered evidence. And they talked about sending CPS to my home for a well child because I removed her from that environment. Well, if mom isn't affirming, she doesn't agree with what we did with their child, she must be abusive. So they called CPS to do a well child check in my home.
Oh my God. Have you published these emails anywhere?
Yep. And
Oh, I need to get a
they're
hold of
not on my
those.
Twitter, but I will republish them for everyone. Yep.
I
They're
would
horrific.
I would love to see because I really do think parents need to understand this. Now, what caused you to FOIA the emails? Because that's kind of like a lot of people don't really understand FOIA. They don't understand when they're sending FOIA requests, the type of things they can ask for. What brought you to that place?
I was really fortunate that I went to a school board meeting the week it happened. I was in tears. I was screaming at anyone that would listen to me. Do you know about this woman? Do you know what's happening in our schools? And I found a group of parents who were smarter than me and who taught me the power of it's Colorado Open Record Act here in Colorado, how to FOIA. and what to FOIA. And so I started to pin down the people that were involved during that time frame, going through all their emails, their calendars. And I mean, it's all right there in the emails. They were incredibly brazen about calling me a barrier and calling me a problem and calling in CPS to do a well child check on us. And I'll say too, you said, can you imagine if she hadn't have told us? I can't imagine, because when we went public a year later, 4 other families came forward. Hundreds of families have come forward to me.
Oh my
There's
God.
so many people that have gone through this who are afraid to say it out loud. But 4 other little girls in that teacher's influence who were in that art club that day all became so confused that they became suicidal. One of them drank bleach and almost died. And the parents didn't know. They didn't know until we went public. So a whole year went by where their child was steeped in this confusion to the point of suicidality. And the parents are thinking, what have I done? What have I done to cause this confusion and this depression in my child? When the reality is it was being pushed on them at school and the parents had no idea. So I can't imagine what it feels like. I've talked to these parents and it's gut wrenching. In fact, one of their testimonies is on my Twitter. The dad whose little girl drank bleach, he addressed the board and they never responded to him.
That is completely, well, it's shocking to me and it's not shocking to me at the same time. I really think that one of the things that can be one of the most impactful things people can do is to connect with parents and families in their local communities and start discussion groups around this, because it seems like, and I've seen this in school district after school district, there's so many parents that are suffering with the same thing, that have the same questions, but everyone is afraid to talk because they'll be labeled by the school as being bigoted or have child protective services sent after them. And so all this stuff is happening and no one's talking about it and everyone's worrying about it. And if we can just start connecting parents for just kitchen table conversations about what's going on in the school where no one else is listening, maybe a lot of this stuff can come to light that hasn't been brought to light before. I just want to quickly bring up the super chat from Brooklyn Way, and she's an amazing activist in North Carolina. Brooklyn Way says, where he exposed the same in New Hanover County, North Carolina. Beck exposed the same 2 weeks prior to his segment with her. Shocking that this county was red. Can we talk about that for a second? Is this like, are you in like a conservative county?
I'm in a conservative suburb of what was formerly a conservative county. We're a farm ag community, formerly red. That's a whole nother subject. There's been an initiative to turn Colorado blue. And Fort Collins, where I live in a suburb outside a conservative Horsetown suburb, but Fort Collins has been labeled the best place to live, best place to raise your family for 20 years running. And so it's a target of this agenda completely. And I talked to Glenn Beck about this. Our school board was bought and paid for by the Obamas, the Stryker family, the Rockefellers, the Gates Foundation, the NEA was here campaigning in Fort Collins for all these school board members. So, and all of them are complicit in this agenda. So it's a formerly red area that has definitely, there's a big initiative nationally to convert it to insanely liberal.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that it tends to be a more traditionally conservative leaning area, just because something I hear from parents all the time is, I live in a red district, Karlyn, or I live in a red state, so I must be safe. And I'm like, I don't care if you live in the reddest county in the reddest state in the country. The schools are the ones pushing it, and the schools are the ones that are corrupt, and they're corrupt in red counties just like they're corrupt in blue counties. It doesn't really matter. And I think that the minute that people rest on their laurels is the minute that their child comes home and says, I learned I was trans today in school.
Guilty.
Yep.
I mean, we live it's a 10,000 person town. It's a horse town. Everyone's got a cowboy hat. I mean, it's incredibly conservative. And the FOIA emails that I obtained showed that they targeted it for that reason. So she knew what she was doing, coming to this community to make it more welcoming and inclusive and tolerant, all things that my community is. But because we're conservative, they assume that they need to come in and change us. So we were targeted for being conservative. I agree. I caution everyone everywhere that this is happening in every single school district, in every single state in the country.
Can you walk us through the process of FOIAing these emails, and like what terms did you target? How did you find the staff list? Things like that.
Yeah, I really truly didn't understand my right as a citizen that our government entities are all beholden to Sunshine Law, to FOIA. Everything they do is public record. Their emails, their calendars, their budgets, their grant money. We've definitely dug in, the group of parents and I, to their grants to see, where these initiatives are coming from. So my approach was to make it as targeted as possible because they do cost money. I have spent thousands of dollars in FOIAs. I won't pretend that it isn't a costly thing to look into what your government is doing, but I focus down on the people involved, the timeline in which our incident happened, and keywords. A lot of these emails that I've exposed now is just from doing keyword searches on gender support plans, on, parents, even just the word parents for specific people who I know are hiding things from parents. So that keyword is really important, and narrowing it down as specifically as possible will yield you the best results.
Gender support plan is a new term that I just heard last week, and I guess it's been around for a while, but I didn't hear it until like a couple weeks ago. I was exposing the Michigan Department of Education for teaching elementary school teachers how to create gender support plans, and I found the gender spectrum, gender support plan, and all of this stuff, and I was like, oh great, another fresh hell that we have to deal with. So gender support plan is a good one to look for. What other terms have you found to be particularly successful with these FOIA requests?
Yeah, gender support plan is a big one. Confidentiality, because they're keeping secrets from parents. So I have keyworded that. My gosh, GSA, Gender and Sexuality Alliance. A lot of that stuff should be made available publicly if it's a club that your children is able to go to. But I would caution all parents to pay attention to gender and sexuality awareness, or even just GSA. And these gender support plans, they've gotten really sneaky and they've come up with new terms for them. So in my district, it's now an individual support plan, and parents cannot request them. Only a child can ask for one for themselves. So support plan is what I would advise people to look into in that case.
Wow. So what process did you use to kind of get your daughter back on track when all of this started?
I made a lot of mistakes in the process. And for us, avoiding the subject made it worse. Letting her sit and stew in this confusion was not helpful. It definitely contributed to her mental decline. So my best piece of advice is to be really open and honest about that conversation, address exactly how they're feeling, use all the words, use transgender, talk about it directly. But also the biggest thing for us was cutting off influences. So unfortunately, not her fault, the cell phone was no longer in her possession. And that was our fault for giving it to her too young. I don't think anyone under 15 should have a cell phone. I understand that now. Cutting off the internet access. She was a big video gamer. And so in her Discord chat where this predator is trying to connect with her, and this transgender blood witch that we'll get to was invited into art club that day and was included on the Discord invite with my daughter. So video games, internet access, all of that needs to be monitored incredibly carefully. I don't think kids under the age of 15 should have unlimited access to any of it. That was big for us. And we even cut off a friendship that she had developed with someone in this club that was not healthy. It was feeding, her confusion. And so we said, you're not going to talk to this person anymore. We're cutting off that relationship entirely. And then a big one for us too is just kind of, exemplifying. She was told that monogamy and heterosexuality are not normal. They're just common in this meeting. So we made a conscious effort at home, her dad and I, to exemplify that it's okay to be a family and to be married and to be heterosexual and monogamous. That's not abnormal. It's okay. So we have really tried to exemplify that for her as well.
So I think it's really important that you brought up the point about internet, and Gabrielle Clark has talked about this as well, in that one of the things that happened when her daughter got transitioned in school is she went onto her daughter's phone, and her daughter was in all these Discord servers and in all these Facebook groups, and in her private messages were just message after message after message from adult men who were looking for children that had been put through this in school in these groups. And, that was around the time I was thinking about doing this project. I was calling it Groomergate, where I was going to, sign up basically as fake profiles as like a kid and go into these Discord servers and just see what was what. I wanted to see what was going on for myself. Well, I signed up on Reddit, created a couple fake profiles. Within 15 minutes of me posting in one of these groups on Reddit that I was a 15-year-old girl and I wasn't sure I was a girl anymore, I had someone in my inbox, and I am positive that person was not a child, but that person was posing as a child and then asking all these invasive questions. I was like, this is an adult that's trying to scam what they think this account is. And it was absolutely terrifying for me to experience that, because if I'm experiencing that as someone who knows what's going on and is just saying the right words, I know how to process that information. I know how to identify the difference between an adult writing something and a kid writing something, but a kid is not going to know the difference. And it'd be so easy to get sucked into that. So I think removing the internet influence is just absolutely huge. And sadly, it's also going to be the thing that's going to make them hate you.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how hard that must have been, right?
So hard. Yeah, she was angry, and we had to keep reemphasizing, it's not your fault, it's my fault. I gave you unbridled access before you ever should have had it. And there are people on the internet that we cannot trust anymore. We never could trust, but now we understand we cannot trust them. It's not your fault, it's my fault. And you have to be able to be prepared to replace those things with healthy behaviors. Get your kids outside, get them in activities, take them to the movies, whatever. Replace what they ordinarily would spend their time on the internet doing with healthy activities that are out in the real world, that show your child that their online persona is not a real persona. The
Right.
real world is who you are. And it's funny you touch on signing up to a platform and getting predators responding to you. A friend of mine did that with Trevor Chat. So the Trevor Project is
Oh
a family
gosh.
LGBT platform.
Crazy.
Our school district promotes Trevor Project and Trevor Chat. And so we signed up as a child, and same thing, there's all these rooms, chat rooms that are incredibly inappropriate for kids. Like, come talk about polyamory. Okay, well, they're 12. They don't need to be in a chat room talking about polyamory, but just influx of messages from people who clearly are not children. And here our school district is promoting Trevor Chat.
That's insanity. Was she into anime at all?
Very much, very
That's
into Japanese culture.
yes.
She fit all the stereotypes: introverted, shy, quiet, not fitting in, artistic, loves anime, likes video games. She was just the prototype for who to poach.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, you may be learning this for the first time. Anime is a huge gateway for stuff like this. Almost every single parent of kids who've been in this circumstance, they have been obsessed with anime and having these different personas and all of this stuff. And so that's definitely a red flag to watch out for.
And anthropomorphic art, which I didn't understand what it was, but my daughter was very into animals with with human-like personalities. So she was into
gosh.
like Wings of Fire books and Warrior Cats books. And online forum about, there was one in particular, it was Ranboo and Tubbo, who are gamers who have these anthropomorphic online personas, and they're in a trans relationship. And so that became this story that she was obsessed with. And I've learned that on, like deviant art websites, anthropomorphic art is a gateway for people to convince children that they're trans.
That makes a ton of sense, just considering, I mean, you're going to go down like the furry bandwagon at that point, or like the transhuman stuff. And in the Discord groups for all these trans kids, they have all these different groups around the anthropomorphic art, or the different like neo pronouns or whatever, where they're like seeing themselves as like rat self or fairies, or all of these different animal personas that they're putting on. It's really creepy and weird.
It really is. It is. And again, there's so many adults involved in it. It's, the whole furry thing is that's adults.
Yeah.
It's not children dressing up as furries. That's an adult pastime. And so that it definitely is a gateway into not just transgender identity, but I believe pedophilia.
Oh, I tend to agree with you on that. I want to talk about, I saw this tweet you posted today. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so people can actually see it. You said, and I apologize for taking a second, my computer has decided to become the pace of a turtle. The genderqueer witch is deeply embedded in my school district, providing multiple teacher trainings that heavily promote medical transition as the only way to prevent gender confused children from committing suicide. And we've got here queer shapeshifter provides Colorado teenagers with training on transitioning and oppression. and we've got some blood stuff going on that I'm sure you'll be able to explain to us. That doesn't look so good. Who and who isn't a trusted adult, which trusted adult is something we're seeing show up in a lot of school districts where teachers are telling kids you can tell a trusted adult, but they don't necessarily mean parents. Sometimes they just mean the teachers, because they're the safe ones. And you got stuff like this: 67% of transitioning people thought about suicide, so she's teaching them about that. Who is this lady?
Gosh. This person, again, was a representative of the nonprofit that the woman who abused my daughter ran, called Splash. They were invited into her art club that day, and that's what caused me to investigate. Okay, who is this person who's mysteriously CC'd on all the emails to, from, and about my child and this incident? And what I found is that they are a self-proclaimed, and all of this was available on their website until I exposed them. So they had a website with a blog all about kink sex work, Aleister Crowley, worshiping at the satanic altar. Their social media was filled with them doing rituals with their own blood, injecting testosterone at a pagan altar, showing off their top surgery. And they always have their pentagram necklace on. So they're very proud about being a witch, who is a priestess, is what they call themselves, a non-binary priest of the reclaiming tradition.
Oh my
which
God.
is a witchcraft steeped in political activism. And they're super proud of it. They advertise it as one of their services on their website. But this person they work for the Alliance for Suicide Prevention here locally. And so, as we know, suicide prevention, anti-bullying, tolerance, these are all means for them to push their agenda, which in this person's case is everyone is non-binary. Everyone is on a spectrum of sexuality. I have to get all the kids to know that they don't have to be a gender. They don't have to pick a sexuality. We're all on this non-binary spectrum.
Wow. It's
There's
so interesting you say that because I do a weekly stream on my channel called Socialism Saturday where we watch like real socialist content and we just talk about it because I think a lot of this is being driven by like a Marxist agenda over anything. And one of the things that's become really clear in the 6 months that we've been doing Socialism Saturday is that we watch a lot of like genderqueer stuff and gender Marxism stuff. And they talk about it all the time where they're not trying to get people to be trans, they're trying to get them to be non-binary, which is exactly what you're saying with this witch, where they want to disrupt, abolish, liberate themselves from the gender binary. So they want to create this world full of theys. And have you delved into family abolition yet?
I haven't.
Oh, you check this out. This is where all this is going. And we talked about this on Socialism Saturday too. They want to create a world full of theys because quite literally they want to abolish the biological family and have the state be assigning the children who will all be born via surrogacy. And so that becomes a lot easier when you're eliminating biological gender entirely and everyone's infertile and can't have kids anyway because they put them on hormones when they were 12 years old.
Right. Well, and I've also found that non-binary and pansexual are the easiest things to proclaim for kids without having to change anything about themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Tell me about that.
Well, I just have found that it's easiest for kids to, like my daughter, who's longing for connection, and you get glitter bomb and you want to be accepted and you want to be a part of this group. The easiest thing to do is to call yourself non-binary or pansexual, and you don't have to really claim anything. You're just kind of either or, neither. You don't have to say you're a boy when you're a girl. You don't have to, say you're gay when you're not. You just identify as pan or non-binary and you're part of the club. You fall under the umbrella, but you don't actually have to change anything about yourself. So I've just found that to be the easiest means to loop kids in without having to change much.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're using the they pronouns because they can't be non-binary if they're not using the they pronouns, and a lot of times you'll see like the gateway of the she they pronouns where both of those are okay, and then at some point they transit. It is really messed up. It is like a slow roll out with these kids where it's just like it's not something where they go into school and it's just like all of a sudden they're transitioned one day. It's a planting of an idea that then marinates, that's then reinforced all day at school without the parents knowing about it because it's so subtle sometimes in their classes or in their clubs or things like that. And then all of a sudden you've got a big problem on your hands because it's been reinforced for 6 months before anyone even knew about it.
I say that all the time, that what happened to us is shocking, alarming. I mean, that's a major incident. But what's happening to every single kid in a government school everywhere in America is that they're in a pool with tiny little sharks and they're just getting little tiny bites, taken out of them ever so subtly, and parents don't know what's happening. I mean, they slip gender ideology into kindergarten math and, first grade social studies. It's everywhere and it's undetectable. And so I caution parents all the time. I wouldn't put my kids in government schools knowing what I know now. I feel like the only surefire way to protect your kids from this is to pull them out because it's undetectable. You don't understand that, yes, there may be great lifeguards at the pool, but they can't stop these tiny little bites that are being taken out of your kids every day.
I completely agree with you. I caution people all the time, get your kids out of the schools if you can. If you can't, you need to be paying a really close attention to what's going on. And I think we all understand that it's not easy for everyone to just transition to homeschooling or anything overnight. But I think people need to be aware of how big the problem is. And you just said it's starting in kindergarten, it's starting in preschool. We've looked at the curriculum on this channel too, of it's starting so early. And again, it's just like, it's a 1 week lesson plan. So people are like, oh, it's just a lesson plan, whatever. The rest of the time they're learning normal stuff. Well, that lesson plan plants the seed, and then they're going to keep building on it and building on it and building on it over years before you even know what's happening.
Right. And you're either going to sacrifice now or you sacrifice later. I tell people that all the time. Yes, taking your kids out of government schools is a sacrifice. I know that better than anyone. My kids are in different schools that work best for each of them. It's not easy to drive them 45 minutes each way, but I either sacrifice now or I'm going to sacrifice later when it's too late. Yeah. And I have to say, too, going back to this genderqueer shapeshifter that trains our teachers, they do multiple professional development trainings, not just in our district, but in the neighboring districts, called ABCs of LGBTQ, How to Be a Trusted Adult. You saw they're promoting medicalization. They basically say that if a child is gender confused, if you don't medicalize them, they will kill themselves. It's this bullying tactic. And they're putting this in all of the teachers' heads. I mean, even good teachers who genuinely want to do the right thing, if this is the formal training they're receiving from their employer, and this is the direction of the school district, even good people are forced to do bad things that they know are not the right thing to do with people's children. So that scares me.
Have you gotten a hold of the training that she's doing, like the training decks? You have them?
I do. So the school district denied them. They claimed that because it's a third-party training, they didn't have any access, but I found a hot link deep within a FOIA request that I found to both of these presentations. So yeah, I have all of the slides, and they are as horrifying as you expect them to be.
Oh my God, Erin, I love you. You are, and this is why I tell people all the time, like I do these school investigation live streams sometimes where I just go onto the school district website and I poke around and I show people where to find stuff. And it is always in the most unexpected places where it's like the link at the bottom of the email that you don't even think to click. It's like why you have to click on everything. You have to read everything, because the minute that you ignore that random hyperlink at the bottom of the email is the minute that you're going to find the presentation that the witch did, that was the teacher training that the school doesn't want you to see, right?
Exactly. And they had no right not to provide it to me. Again, public record is public record. If this is a teacher training, which technically qualifies as part of the curriculum, you are required to show it to me. So I tell parents all the time, don't take no for an answer, and get everything in writing. If you have a phone conference, because what my school district did with me from the get-go, and I was a naive parent back then who really just wanted to work it out privately. I didn't want to blow this up so publicly. I thought they would give me any wiggle room, but they just gaslit me. And they made sure that every conversation we had was in person or on the phone. I always follow up with an email.
Yes.
Just to summarize our conversation, you said A, B, C, so that it's in writing, it's public record. Force them to reply in writing so that anyone can obtain that communication. Do not let them call you on the phone. And in Colorado, we're a one-way state. So as long as you know you're being recorded, you don't have to tell the other person they're being recorded. I record everything.
I love you, Erin. You are like my new best friend. No, I think this is great though. And I think that, the point you're making about put everything in writing, absolutely making sure that you're always following up, making sure you're holding their feet to the fire. Do you know how much she was paid for that training, per chance?
Nothing. So the school district.
She did it for free.
Apparently that I can find. So I'm not done digging into the financial aspect of this, but from what I can glean, the Alliance for Suicide Prevention it has an MOU with our district. And so they provide this training as part of that understanding.
Got it. All right. Well, that's
and
good
there's a lot of those. And I tell parents now as well, pay attention to the outside parties. It's not just the people in the schools you need to worry about. It's the Alliance for Suicide Prevention. There's a mental health facility that's got a deep relationship with our district who's pushing all these mental health initiatives and help them obtain. My district just obtained a $1.6 million grant just for mental health. because of these outside partners, and they intend to pay the outside partners for the services. So they're all in bed together.
I have a question about that in a second. I just want to just reinforce what you just said about these outside providers. I have a project that's kind of it's something on my to-do list where I'm going to start it in probably about a month or so, but I want to create a giant database of these community partners that are working in school districts all over the country. So like the Trevor Project, Glisten, stuff like that that's going to show up in big ones, but also I want to do like local ones so people know in Colorado if you're seeing these mental health organizations, this is what they've done in schools before. These are the types of training that they've done in schools before, and I want to have this be like a database that can live on the internet so that parents can know that when they find these community partners in their school districts, red flags should be going off, and this is the other school districts they're working in. These are the other things that they've done so that they have access to that information. I would love to talk to you about that offline.
I love it.
Cool.
That's a great idea.
I also want to start. Yeah, I'm all about like documenting this stuff and just making the information available. And the biggest challenge is just getting access to the information, right? At the end of the day.
And like I said, don't take no for an answer. As public record is public record.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing I recently found out, private text messages and phone calls that are for business purposes are subject to public record.
Yes,
so
they are.
Our superintendent does it all privately in his text, but guess what? That's subject to public record too. Good try. I see what you're doing, and I'm going to get that too.
And a lot of the teachers, they don't know the laws around this. So when they're emailing or text messaging, they really think that this is private information. And some teachers have started getting wise to this, and they're sending emails from like their personal email. But if it relates to business, you can still ask for that information too, and they have to give it to you because it's related to their job. I just want to thank Rosalind for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. It's a #1 little bouncy dog, so I appreciate that, Rosalind. Thank you. And I want to talk. So Brooklyn Way has been texting me incessantly. She's like, ask her about Castle. Ask her about Castle. Do you know anything about Castle and social emotional learning within the school district?
I've done a deep dive into Castle, and SEL is deeply implemented starting in pre-K in our district. I actually found out that my son, when he was in first grade, was doing peace circles in social emotional learning in the public school, where they were told what you hear in the circle, you keep in the circle. So they're starting this secretive mentality with the kids, and as young as kindergarten and first grade. Yes, social emotional learning sounds good on the surface. I think everyone wants our children to be well-rounded and emotionally regulated, but the reality is that it's steeped in Marxism. And it's been an agenda that's been in the school for a long time. We haven't been paying attention, and it's not what we think it is. This is a means to push the transgender agenda, asking pronouns, secrecy. All these Marxist ideas make their way in through social emotional learning, and anti-bullying, tolerance, anti-suicide. That's a big one in our school district. Suicide prevention, but what that really amounts to is telling kids that they're trans, and if they don't transition, they'll kill themselves.
And I mean, they're packaging all of this stuff with all of the things that you are afraid are going to happen to your kids, right? That they're going to be hurt, that they're going to harm themselves, that they're going to be bullied, and they're packaging all of these things to say, we will prevent all these bad things happening to your kids. But what it really is a Trojan horse that's going to be unleashed on you like months or years after they start delivering this type of programming to your kids. And you're going to go, it was an anti-bullying program. What the hell happened? Well, it wasn't actually an anti-bullying program.
Right. And I look at parents like Chloe Cole, who is a very famous detransitioner, and people have said, well, where were her parents? How did they let her transition as a minor and get top surgery? And I've been in that position. When the professionals are coming to you, the therapists and the school district, and saying, this is the only means to save your child. Your child is transgender. That means if you don't affirm it, they're going to kill themselves. You've got to transition them. So I understand that position of parents to say, oh no, I would do anything to keep my child alive. I would do anything. We all would do anything for our children. So I understand that bullying mentality. And I caution parents to trust your gut. Be a skeptic. You know your child better than anyone. Do not let someone bully you into thinking that the only way to save them is to transition them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about this article and what you exposed with this, because this was crazy. And again, guys, if you haven't read it, this is available on my Substack to read. But this was essentially a whole series of emails that you got in which the assistant principal and the chief equity officer were talking about how they were going to lie to parents about the gender status of a fifth grader and use different names and pronouns at school than they were going to use with with the parents. So when the parents called them, they were calling the child by the names and pronouns that the parents told them to call the child. At school, they were using different ones. And the parents in this case, and what makes it so egregious in this case, the parents explicitly told the school district no. Do not use this name. Do not use this pronouns with my child. And the school said, tough cookies. We can do whatever they want. And they ignored it. Tell us about this.
Yeah, and you can see there in that email, if you'll pull it back up,
Yeah.
the last paragraph, the principal says, tonight I was asked about this in the ABCs training. The ABCs training is delivered by Silent the transgender witch.
Oh,
So
I was wondering about that.
it all comes full circle here. Yeah, so
Oh
she
my
learned
gosh.
from Silent the witch that she doesn't have to tell parents, that she can lie to parents. And I'm glad you find this shocking too. I found this shocking. I found these deeply embedded in a FOIA that I did about gender support plans on our district's new LGBTQ coordinator. So after my incident, they hired someone full-time making double what a teacher makes. And in their job description, it literally said coaching students, increasing gender support plans, and advancing LGBTQ programming in the district. This was in her job description. So our district's pretty brazen, really, about what they're doing. They've not apologized for this incident. So as you saw, they transitioned the child. The parents said, stop it. And the official guidance from the district was, do it anyway and lie to the parents until they're supportive. So we'll tell you, if you're affirming your child's transgender confusion, we'll totally tell you what's going on. But if you're not supportive, then we're just going to lie to you. And they've actually put out official guidelines on this now. So that's their official stance. They put out, I'm looking at their FAQ. It says, can I instruct school staff not to use a name or pronoun with my student that's different from the name and pronoun I use at home? And they say, you can request that, but school staff cannot accommodate this request because it would constitute harassment. So their official stance is, we're not going to do what you ask us to do.
And it's not even just the school district too. People need to be aware of this. This is official guidance that I think that they're referencing not just in the school in Colorado, but also in the state in Colorado, talking about privacy at school, where FERPA doesn't apply to the parents anymore. FERPA only applies to the students, and they can still hide all this information. Like, it is not legal for them to give you information about what they're doing with your kid.
Yeah, they're misconstruing the law.
Oh yeah,
so that's not what FERPA says at all. But they're getting away with it.
Has anyone sued them over this?
Not that I know of, and I have yet to find the family of this fifth grader who was transitioned. I would love to find them and get them the support that they should have. I have lawyers at the national level. Ian Pryor with America First.
Oh, I love Ian Pryor.
Isn't he the best? He reached out and said, do you know this family? I want to represent them. So there are lawyers chomping at the bit to support this family, and I hope they know that they're not alone, that this is happening all over the district. It happened to me. So I hope that they come forward, but no, I don't know of any lawsuits yet besides the one that I have in the works.
I mean, Gabrielle Clark talks about this. There's actually a workshop on my website, which is activelyunwoke.com/on-demand. Gabrielle Clark, she was the mom that filed the first ever lawsuit against critical race theory in schools in the country, which she ended up, doing pretty well off a settlement on that one. But the point is, like, she tells parents all the time, file a lawsuit against the school. The school is going to settle. They're going to learn a lesson. You're going to get a down payment on your house. You're going to be able to pay for your kids' college education, and you're going to be able to send a message to the school district to cut it out. And I really think that lawsuits, lawfare, is one of the most powerful weapons that parents have to fight back against this stuff in schools. When parents sue the schools, they're not only helping their child, they're not only financially, quite frankly, helping their family in a really significant way in a lot of cases, but they're also making sure that the schools know that they will be held accountable, which is going to help every single student in the school district. And it's incredibly difficult and expensive to get a judgment, to finally get like a precedent set in the courts with a lot of this stuff. But that's why most school districts will just settle out of court, and they will learn not to do it again. The problem is that a lot of parents are really reticent to sue the school districts because they think they're going to be harassed, bullied. They don't want to give up their social clique. They don't want anything to happen to their kids. But I really think the only way this problem stops is when more parents start stepping up and say, if you do this to my child, I will sue you. And then they follow through on those lawsuits over and over and over again until the schools finally get the message.
I agree 100%. And just be loud. The negative press on my school district has probably impacted them just as much as my lawsuit will. They have not appreciated the negative press. That's why they come to my Facebook page and put out media articles calling me an uncredible source and a liar. I just want to empower parents to know that I was scared. I was scared to come forward. I've had family members disown me. I received death threats. I get called a bigot every day. That's fine. My child and their well-being and the well-being of other children is way more important than people's opinion of me. I don't regret speaking up. And I have found that a lot of parents agree with me. They're just afraid to say it out loud. Once I was brave enough to say, this happened to me, people came flooding in like, I support you. This happened to me too. I appreciate what you're doing. So I encourage people to speak up. You'll find that there's a lot more people that support you than you think.
Now, so what if parents find themselves in the position that you were in, whether they're in your area in Colorado or anywhere else in the country, what steps would you advise them to take in terms of managing the situation with their child, communicating with the school districts, things like that?
Again, everything in writing. Reach out immediately, make your concerns known, record the conversation if they won't put it in writing, summarize it in an email if they won't put it in writing. Make sure that you're recording everything, but act immediately. Tell the school what's going on. Go to the school board. School board meetings are public record as well. So I made an effort to stand in front of the school board publicly and say what happened so that it's on the record, can't be ignored. So that's a big one. Pursue lawfare. There are so many organizations out there who want to help. Like I said, I'm communicating with Ian Pryor. I have a lawyer here locally who reached out to help me. There are so many people who want to set a precedent on these school districts because it's really kind of uncharted territory. And if we don't speak up and make it known and pursue lawfare and pull our kids out and be loud about it, it's going to keep happening. It's going to be up to parents to stop it. And it's going to have to be in numbers. I cannot do it alone. Gabrielle cannot do it alone. Yeah. We have got to speak up collectively and make the voice heard of parents, which I think most parents agree that we don't want our kids being told to keep secrets from us. And we don't want our kids being shown, pornographic images in first grade. I think we can all agree on that. And that we need to remove the stigma from talking about this issue because it's happening to more people than you would think.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of parents would be completely open and honestly fine if it turned out that their kids were actually transgender or they were gay or any of these things. I don't think the vast majority of parents would flip out or become an unsafe space or kick their kids out of the house or anything like that. I think we can all acknowledge that, okay, maybe onesies and twosies would here and there, and that's horrible and that's not a good situation to be in. But most parents want their kids to be happy. They want their kids to be successful. They don't really care who their kids love. They don't care what outfits their kids wear, any of those things. And I think that, making sure that story is told as well is that this is not a bigoted group of parents, but you don't want your kids to be to be transitioned proactively by the school district when it's not really who they are. And I think we're seeing the results of that is that when that happens and that confusion happens, it's creating such cognitive dissonance in these kids that it's causing them actual mental health problems that were not there before the school started doing proactive conversion.
Yeah, 100%. If we're not as parents going to stand between the school and this harm that they're doing to our children, who is going to?
Yeah.
We have to. And I believe it's a battle of good versus evil. I think that there's a lot of people caught up in like good teachers who think they're doing the right thing, but it's causing harm to our kids. And so again, we've got to be vocal. We've got to fight back with lawfare, with pulling our kids out. What's funny is I got loud when I called the police. So when this happened to my little girl, this is emotional, mental, sexual abuse of my daughter. And I watched her decline. I watched how it hurt her. And if it had happened on a playground, I would have called the police first. But because it happened in a school, I wanted to seek to understand the situation. Well, I called the police. He said, get loud. People in our community need to know that this is happening. If you're not going to say something, it's going to keep happening. So we need you to get loud. That was what my sheriff told me. So when my local police says, you, mom, need to say it out loud, I listened, and I'm glad I did.
Have you been able to start coordinating with other parents in the district to fight back against this?
So I've got this great group of parents that performs CORA requests or Colorado Open Record requests all the time and fights back at school board meetings. But we also have a Moms for Liberty now. I just started a Moms for America chapter. So kind of echoing what you said, I think there's a lot of power in collecting, in getting together as parents and talking about these issues and talking about how we can fix it. So yes, finally, 2 years after our incident, there are some grassroots groups that are starting to come together and parents are starting to wake up. And our school district numbers are not out yet, but I can guarantee that there's been a big hit in attendance in the last year.
Awesome. Well, you're getting such great feedback, Erin. This is Jennifer. She's actually not that far away from you in Colorado. She says, I'm so grateful Erin is here in the state. We need her so badly. I'm very grateful to her. Jennifer is an actual witch, not a crazy blood witch like that woman doing training in your school district. So not all witches are bad. Reagan says, I'll be connecting with Erin right after this stream. She's extremely knowledgeable. Thank you, Erin. So lots of appreciation for you in the chat and sharing your story. Erin, is there anything else that you would like people to know before we wrap up the stream?
Gosh, we covered a lot here. I just reemphasize my two pieces of advice to all parents, because I have little kids and it's hard to talk about this with little kids. My two pieces of advice are: tell your kids early and often that a safe adult would never ask them to keep a secret. If an adult asks them to keep a secret, you come tell your parents. And also, no one should ask you to label yourself. I tell my 8-year-old all the time, you are just you. No one should, your teachers should not ask you to label yourself in any way. And if they do, you tell mom. So I'll leave them with that. That is something I think every parent can say to any age child, just to try to prepare them and thwart these initiatives from our schools.
Awesome. And where can people find and connect with you if they want to?
So I'm Erin for Parental Rights, FOR, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then my website is stopgenderideology.com. I actually am working with a renowned filmmaker on a documentary film that'll be out this summer. We're raising funds so we can make it widely available for free. So that will be available on Stop Gender Ideology this summer.
Awesome. And guys, all of those links are in the description below. I want to encourage everyone to connect with Erin, help her on her project. I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do some more things together in the future, Erin, and I'd love to help you with this project as well. I think everything that I've heard today is just incredible. You're doing all the things that I would tell a parent to do, and it's really nice and really refreshing. And I know it's probably been a really hard slog, but thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for showing other parents how to fight this fight. And thank you for standing up and saying something when someone needed to do it.
Thanks, Karlyn. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys, I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you again, Erin, for coming on the stream today. Now, as I told you guys at the beginning, I do have a workshop that I'm going to be doing tonight starting at 8 p.m. So there is about 2 hours to get into the workshop. It is called Advanced Psychology, Mastering why people do what they do. There we go. Hopefully I'll be able to speak a little bit more coherently in the workshop tonight. I'm sure it'll be fine. But here's the deal, guys. If you want to influence people in terms of getting people together in groups in your communities, in terms of getting them to speak up, in terms of getting on the same page with where you guys are all going. Of course, I'm calling this my Unwoke Your Work series because it is all about interpersonal relationships. And I did develop a lot of this content when I was doing more organizational psychology full time. But guess what? We can apply this to fighting back against the woke left as well. I really think this is going to be a great workshop in terms of getting people to understand what drives people to do what they do, what's going to motivate them, what's going to scare them away, what's going to make them run towards something, what's going to make them run away from something. It is information that you need in basically every part of your life, and you still have some time to sign up for it. Let me just drop the link in the chat one more time. It'll be live in a couple hours, and if you can't make the live show tonight, there will be a recording sent out tomorrow that if you sign up for it, it'll go right to your inbox. I'm really looking forward to connecting with everyone that's registered for the workshop already. We're going to have a great time. And tomorrow, of course, I'm going to be back tomorrow for happy hour. I think what we're going to watch tomorrow for happy hour is an Ibram X. Kendi talk from a Yale University center of those crazy little centers at these universities that do some of the most Marxist talks in the world. I think we're going to do Ibram X. Kendi tomorrow for happy hour. Happy hour is a stream we do on Fridays at 5 p.m. where we watch a woke presentation from start to finish, and I have some beer. I've got a green beer for tomorrow, a St. Patrick's Day beer, if you will. I hope you will all join me for happy hour tomorrow. Guys, in the meantime, please mount that like button on your way out the door. Make sure you subscribe to my Substack and make sure you connect with Erin on all the platforms she's on. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.